Hi there everyone, how are we doing? I'm Hamish Carton. Bit of a testing time for everyone at the moment as the government look to re-tighten their COVID-19 measures. It looks like we could be in for a tough road ahead over the next 6 months, who knows, maybe longer. That's the negative stuff. The positive news from me is that the output in this channel isn't going to change at all for the foreseeable future. We're going to continue with pretty much daily videos all the way through. Hopefully football is going to continue. There'll be no more stoppages there, and we'll have loads and loads to chat about. While I'm talking about the channel, it would be remiss of me not to mention and put out my usual plug that if you've not yet managed to subscribe, we would massively appreciate you taking the time to do that. I was taking a look at the analytics on the channel earlier on in the week, and it does seem like the vast majority of views we get on the channel are from non-subscribers. Now, we appreciate all views we get, subscribers and non-subscribers. However, if you are watching this video and you're not a subscriber and you don't want to miss out on any future videos with the likes of myself, John McGinley, David Walton and Celtic legend Jackie McNamara, then you know what you have to do. Pause this video now, click the subscribe button, click the alarm bell as well so that you don't miss out on any future videos, and it would be massively appreciated by myself. Go and do it now if you fancy it. It would help me out with the channel, it would help me out with my boss at work. Please do it, it would be massively appreciated. Right, on to today's video. I'll be honest with you, struggling a little bit for transfer news at the moment. It seems as if Celtic rumours have dried up a little bit. We know we still need a left back in at the club. A few names have been mentioned. Ben Davies at Preston North End's been mentioned. Alfie Doughty at Charlton. We've also heard the likes of Mitchell Bakker and Barry Douglas as well at Leeds United. However, it has gone a little bit quiet over the last few days. Hopefully that's no sign of Celtic taking their foot off the gas and thinking they're fine with what they've got. Maybe it's just a sign of what's going on and it's natural things slow down a little bit. However, we've still got another transfer video for you today because I know you guys and girls are really enjoying them at the moment. So I was having a little bit of a think about a kind of angle we could take on a video, and I was looking at the current first team and just coming across how many players we have that used to play at smaller Scottish clubs. Now, if you were to look at the current first team, obviously David Turnbull have just signed. We signed Greg Taylor last summer. Scott Brown, the club's captain, came from Hibs not so long ago. Ryan Christie, one of our best players, came from Inverness. So we always, over the years, have brought in players from smaller clubs. That, coupled with the reaction following the Hibs Rangers game and a certain player, Ryan Porteous, and some fans saying that we should now move for him, as well as some chats we've had with Jackie McNamara over his Dundee United team and how some of those players moved to Celtic, all came together and got me thinking about doing a little video just detailing 3 players from the Scottish Premiership that I think could end up at Celtic one day. Maybe 3's too small a number, you might be thinking. I did think for 5 or 6 or even 7, but if I'm honest, there's probably not too many at the moment in Scottish football that could make the step up to Celtic. Maybe that's a reflection of how the rest of the league's doing, or maybe it's just a reflection on how good Celtic are. But anyway, I found 3 players. There's mentions for a few more as well, and yeah, let's just get into it. Starting with a man who's pretty popular amongst the Celtic support right now. There's definitely an element of recency bias when it's come to this one. Would I necessarily be saying that Ryan Porteous could be a future Celtic player prior to the game against Rangers? Probably not, although I was still obviously well aware of him. He's a 21-year-old centre-back. For those of you who don't know, he's played over 50 times for Hibs, and that's with having some injury problems in his early career so far. He kind of came to a lot of Celtic fans' attention on Sunday when his Hibernian side drew 2-2 with Rangers. The majority of that furore was about off-the-field stuff, post-match stuff with a number of Rangers players and their manager not wanting to shake hands or even fist bump as it is nowadays with Porteous after the game. But the reason I'm actually picking him in the main is that I thought his performance was really good. I really like the player. He's young, but he's not naive. He seems to read the game really well, certainly from judging on Sunday. He's really, really strong, and he looks to have a good bit of pace about him as well. I've seen a lot of him over the years, especially when he first leapt onto the scene a couple of years ago. Funnily enough, that was under Neil Lennon, so the Hoops boss will know all about Porteous, and I just think with all of these things adding up and the fact that next year we're likely to be looking for a centre-back, I doubt Christopher Ajer will still be a Celtic player going into next season. Shane Duffy, obviously we don't know what happened with him, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if the club were looking at a player like Ryan Porteous. If they were looking in Scotland, and if you were looking in Scotland, he's the one that would jump out to me. Obviously Scott McKenna's been mentioned in the past, now looks like he's going to leave Aberdeen to go down to Nottingham Forest. Porteous is a few years younger, and for me, an all-round better player. I think he's got pace and power that McKenna probably only has the latter. So I really like Porteous. Obviously the big positive as well, and I can't ignore it, is that he's absolutely riled them across the city. God, they think they're going to win the league and they're getting riled by a 21-year-old Scotland youth international. But hey ho, if he was to come to Celtic, he would have that bonus as well of having them riled and governed. But I'm signing him for mainly football reasons. I think Ryan Porteous could be a future Celtic player on the proviso that he continues that development over the next 12 months or so. Hands up, this is a pretty controversial one. He's the son of Derek, nephew of Barry Ferguson, both former Rangers players, both detested former Rangers players, especially Barry. He was quoted not so long ago, Barry this is, talking about his nephew, Lewis Ferguson, saying that he wouldn't necessarily think that Lewis Ferguson would be deterred from a move to Celtic just because his family has a history with Rangers. That's interesting for me to hear. I must admit that I quite like the player. I think he gets stuck in. I can't help but see some similarities in his career to Scott Brown, just the way he played in his early career. And with Scott Brown's shelf life reaching expiry at Celtic, and he's not going to be at the club forever, I wonder if a man to replace him further down the line could be Lewis Ferguson. I need to see more of him this season. He probably still has to develop a lot, come on to a better game, learn how to do some things better and more assured to be a Celtic quality player, because I think he still is a good Aberdeen player right now, not a good Celtic player. I think there's a massive difference there, but I think he has real quality. He gets his foot in, as Tom Rogic found out in a Hampden game not so long ago, and he's really physical, which I think is important at his age. So would he move to Celtic? Would the club move for him? Two big questions. I think the answer is unknown to both because it hasn't happened yet, but I wouldn't be massively surprised. And as we know, players can turn the support round by playing well. I don't think too many fans would be really happy about the signing when it first happened, but a few good performances and the Celtic support would probably turn. Just on the comparison between himself and Scott Brown was 22 when he came to ourselves. Lewis Ferguson currently 21, so maybe the age of 22 in a year's time is when he should move to us. But as I say, I'm not saying we should sign him right now. Please get that in your head from this video. But I'm just saying at some stage in his career, I wouldn't be against the club moving for him. And I do think he could have the quality to play in that midfield once Scott Brown departs. Just before I move on to our final player, I've got an honourable mention for Motherwell's Alan Campbell, player who does a lot of the same things as Lewis Ferguson. Very similar players. They actually look quite similar looking at them. Massive rave reviews at Motherwell. Many Well fans think he's better than David Turnbull and was more consistent for them. I just think that Lewis Ferguson has a higher ceiling than Alan Campbell, but I think both could be future internationals for Scotland. So we've had a defender, we've had a midfielder. It would be rude not to pick a striker now. A bit of a kind of dearth of talented strikers in the Premiership at the moment. I really like Lyndon Dykes. I know a lot of Celtic fans would have kind of balked at the idea of him moving for him in the summer. I think he'll go on to have a really good time at QPR and will probably play in the English Premier League at some stage. But if we're talking about players that are currently there, the obvious two are probably Lawrence Shankland and Kevin Nisbet, and as you saw earlier, I'm going to go for the latter. Now, both of these strikers, it's easy to see the similarities. They both came up from the Championship after scoring a barrel load of goals and are playing in the Premiership so far. Nisbet scored 18 in 25 for Dunfermline Athletic last season. Really, really good record, and he's carried that on at a much bigger club in Hibernian this season. He's got 4 goals in 6 games so far. Saw him on Sunday against Rangers as well, and he caused them a lot of problems. He nearly scored with a kind of quick sharp turn and a volley that was really well saved by the Rangers goalkeeper. Again, exact same as Alan Campbell and Ryan Porteous. I think he needs to keep developing to be good enough for Celtic, but I think he's one we should keep an eye on. The biggest compliment I can pay him is that he's scored goals wherever he's gone in his career, and he's scored them by the barrel load. He's scored absolutely loads, and I think there are, again, similarities with a current Celtic player, and that current Celtic player is Leigh Griffiths. If you look at their career trajectory, starting in the lower leagues in Scotland, working their way up, eventually playing for Hibs, scoring a lot of goals for Hibs, albeit that Griffiths has done it over a far larger sample size than Nisbet. I think there's similarities there, and I would like to see us keep an eye on Nisbet. And if he scores 15, maybe even 20 goals this season, then that is a very high total, and one that we should maybe be keeping an eye on and looking to move for next summer. As I reiterate, I don't think any of the players I've mentioned in this video should be signed for the club this summer. We have already signed the best player in Scotland outside ourselves and our rivals in David Turnbull this summer, but I think it's worth keeping an eye out next year for who could come in, and maybe a year down the line the three names I've mentioned in this video could be worth a look.